Hello, everybody. My name is Ulrik Slotthus. I'm from Tintri. I'm a senior system engineer at Tintri. Today we're going to talk about the enterprise cloud platform, which means that we have a storage solution, but I promise you we're not going to talk a lot about speeds and feeds and all that stuff, because what's interesting with our solution is the DNA that's built into it, how we can automate things, everything per virtual machine. So kind of think about what, let's say, like Amazon, what they're doing in their data center. They're probably not thinking about traditional storage and all that stuff, and that is actually what kind of a solution we can give you. So to start with, what is the general problem about storage? We all know that this term that men comes from Mars and women from Venus. So we have a lack of communication problem between men and women sometimes. I'm not going to go into details about that. This is not a presentation about that. But if we look at the storage layer, the storage solution we have in the market today is built on LON. And LON is something we use for physical servers. So what do we do in a storage environment today when we are heavily virtualized? Well, we create LONs and we attach these LONs to data stores. And if we have performance problems in a data store, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to create another LON. And then we're going to do micromanagement of the VMs between the LONs, trying to secure that performance is good enough and all that stuff. And that's actually something we want to get rid of. Because why the hell, use LONs when we are heavily virtualized, probably 100% virtualized. So that is the problem that the market has been facing. Why do VMware, for example, have they created an API called vVault? Well, maybe because the traditional storage system don't work as good as they would like it to do. Or vSAN, for example, we have something they are offered there as well. So that is actually what we in Tintri can provide you with. So we are VMware Storage, which means that we have a storage solution that is specifically built for virtualization. It doesn't only work with VMware, but of course VMware is one of the first ones we supported because of the market shares they have. What we can create a solution for you. Well, the only three things you have to look at is the entire system, is the entire pool good enough? Is it healthy? Is there something wrong with it? We, of course, will monitor it for you and report if something goes wrong with the hardware layer. And we come out and fix disk and controllers and all that stuff. But basically, you need to monitor how much free capacity do I have in the pool and how much free performance do I have. That's it. You don't need to worry about where is my VM stored, in which kind of data stores, what kind of RAID groups am I using, and all that stuff. What our technology and our software will do is that it will automatically make sure that every single virtual machine gets the performance it needs out of the pool. Unless, of course, that you're using more performance than the entire pool can handle. Then, of course, you need to add a new array to the environment. But that's the only thing you need to monitor with Tintri. And then you can focus on the business, on the virtual machine, and the applications. If we go a little bit deeper dive, how do we actually do this? And what do you gain out of a VMware storage system? The first thing you get is visibility. So with Tintri, you can actually track your I/O from the single virtual machine across the entire infrastructure down to the storage layer. And you can actually do that and report on it. And what you can do is that you can see where is my bottlenecks. So is my bottlenecks in the host layer? Is it the network? Or is it the storage layer? And what component is it in the storage layer? And we do this in real time. And so if you set up a Tintri unit as a data store and you migrate some of your virtual machines over to the Tintri unit, you get this visibility out of the box. You don't need to configure anything besides configuring the array. That's it. You don't need to install a Tintri agent or anything to get this information. It just works. When you scale to bigger environment, of course, we have a central tool where you can orchestrate everything, everything per virtual machine. But again, you don't have to look at every individual Tintri unit that is in your environment. You just look at the entire pool. And we do support up to 160,000 virtual machines, all managed from one single UI. So my guess is that we will cover most of Danish customers with that. Then around performance, of course, if we have a sports car, I know which kind of the road I want to drive in, which is more fun, of course. The problem with storage is that since we have these LONs and RAID groups and all that stuff, well, a single virtual machine can actually destroy performance for other ones. And as I said in the beginning, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to create another LON, and then and another data store, and you're going to do this micromanagement of your VMs. What is different with Tintri is that we don't have this I/O blender, as you see over to the left. That is a LON-based storage system, because the storage system cannot see what's going on for a single virtual machine. So it has to serve the I/O first in, first out. That's it. So if a single virtual machine in a LON-based system creates a lot of I/O, it can destroy performance for the other ones. What is different with Tintri is that we can build a data store up to 300 terabyte. And we promise you, a single virtual machine cannot destroy performance for other ones. Because every single virtual machine, every single virtual disk actually has its own queue system in our file system. So if one virtual machine generates a lot of I/O, it can only destroy performance for itself. Our algorithm will make sure that every single virtual machine get their fair share of the resources out of the box. This works dynamically. You don't have to configure anything. If you move a virtual machine to a Tintri unit, it will work like that. The other option you have is you can also control it. So if you would like to create some policies, you can actually go in and specify. So let's say, for example, I have some test virtual machines. So I can put in a maximum number of I/O I want to deliver to a single virtual machine. It could also be my most critical virtual machine. I want to make sure that my most critical virtual machines get 10,000 IOPS. I can actually guarantee that in our platform. So I can put in QoS with 10,000 IOPS for my Oracle database or whatever, and if the database requires these I/O, it will get it. Of course, if you are overcommitted on I/O on what the entire pool can handle, then of course there will be some latency for the VMs. That is QoS. But you can guarantee performance in our solution per VM. So that's also something that's very unique. So there's no requirements of tuning and all that stuff we done for centuries. We do it dynamically for you. Oh, let me. 2 seconds. It won't switch. So, scale. Of course, we need also to have a solution that can scale. So you can start with 17 terabyte, and you can go up to 10 petabyte if you want to go big. And how do we handle that when we scale? Well, we add more units into the pool, and what our software then will do, it will look at every single unit and every single virtual machine. And if a single unit here, we detect, it will run out of capacity, let's say in 20 days. We will warn you, and you can click execute, and then virtual machines will remove the round. You can also automate it completely if you don't want to touch anything. Then we will move the virtual machines around and make sure that we do load balancing across the entire pool of every single unit and every single for every single virtual machine. What we also support is you mix, because we have different boxes. We have hybrid boxes, we have all-flash boxes. And what you actually can do, you can mix it. And you can mix old Tintri units with new ones. And again, we make sure we look at the single virtual machine. Do we deliver the performance it needs? Yes or no? And if we don't, and we see a better match on another unit, we remove the virtual machine automatically to the new data store. What is really good with this is when we move virtual machines around in the pool, you're not going to lose any of the statistic information we have, where we show you how much I/O we are delivering per virtual machine with kind of latency and all that stuff. You're still going to have that. So you're not going to have any gaps in that. If you do data management, snapshotting of your virtual machines in our file system, we do snapshot per virtual machine and can restore single virtual machine out of these snapshots. And the snapshot will also be moved around when we move virtual machines around. You don't need to do anything. Our software will make sure that every single virtual machine gets the performance it needs, and we're not going to break anything on snapshot historics or all that stuff. What we also can do is that we can also show you trends. So what's going on in your environment? How is your trend growing for the last 3 years, for example? Of course, you need to be a Tintri customer for 3 years, because else we don't have that metadata. But then you can actually see, how is your environment trending. But what you also can do is that I can go in our UI and say, what will happen if I launch 100 new virtual machines that is matched with the average of a single virtual machine I have? What will happen in the pool? Do I actually have performance enough to handle those new applications or not? We can also show you that. What we also can show you later is that we can also show that on memory and CPU power for your data center. So do I have enough memory in my virtual in my host, or CPU power in my host to actually handle those new virtual machines? That's also something. So of course it will make it easier for you to predict when do I need to, add a unit more to the pool. Recovery. As I said, we also have data management tools in it. And one of the first things is that we do snapshotting. We do snapshot per virtual machine. But it is not a VMware snapshot that will stay in the host and it will cause performance issues. It is a VM level storage snapshot that we do. Of course, you can schedule a VM consistent snapshot. We will make sure that we create a VMware snapshot before we do the Tintri snapshot. We're going to remove the host snapshot afterwards. So it's not going to stay there and cause performance issues. Then, of course, you can recover a virtual machine. You can jump back in time. No matter the size of the virtual machine, it takes minutes. And the reason why it takes minutes is we need to power down the virtual machine. Then we move some pointers in a file system. It takes a millisecond. And then we power up the virtual machines again. So depending on your environment, of course, it can be seconds, it can be minutes. Of course, it depends on how fast your environment is to reboot a VM. When you have jumped back in time, what you also can do is that you're not going to lose any of our snapshot history. So you can always jump around. So let's say you were hit by ransomware. Or we had a customer in UK that was hit by ransomware in our file system. So he actually jumped around in the snapshot history and trying to find out what was the last good snapshot he had for that file server before the ransomware software kicked in. And this so that's one of the options you have with our solution as well. The other thing is that we can also recover guest files. So the reason why we do that is that we take the snapshot, we create a clone of the snapshot, and the clone is going to be mounted at separate disk into the virtual machine. And then you go into the virtual machine and you drag and drop your files out of it, what you need. The reason why we do a clone of the snapshot is we don't want you to mess around with the snapshot, of course, because the snapshot is also something we may use when we do the VM level recovery. And then there's a checkbox in the UI, and after 48 hours, we will detach these extra disks, we'll remove the clone, and everything will be back again. Will this completely replace your backup software? Well, probably not, because we don't have any agents for Oracle databases and all that stuff. but it's a very good add-on to your existing data management way of doing things. And it doesn't. There's no license cost to it. It comes with the box. Another thing that we can do is that since we're operating per vDisk in our environment, if you have a requirement from the business that you want to have test and dev environments, we have something that's pretty cool. Because I can actually take a production server and I can, of course, clone that to separate different dev environments. And that's good enough. You know, then the developers can work on the data set, and they have on the production, the copy of the production data. But what you know, if they want to update that data set later on, how are you going to handle that? Well, normally we see customers do a backup of the production environment, and then they do a recovery of the data, or they do a new cloning, or something like that. What we can do is that we can actually take the individual vDisk and push that out to other vDisk in your environment. And if we shut down the databases, the test dev databases, we shut them down, and we push the vDisk out to them, when the Oracle databases will start up, then they will have the new data set. This can, of course, also be scripted. And it doesn't, again, it takes minutes because we don't need to copy any data. Everything is handled in our file system with the pointers to the separate, the individual data blocks. It could be useful. You know, it depends on, of course, of your environment. We have a lot of software companies that are now Tintri customers because of this functionality. Then we have the cloud. If I'm on the beach, you know, I know what kind of weather I would prefer here. So, and the challenge we see in the market is that how do we actually do this? You know, how do we get started with our cloud offering? It could be public, it could be private, or whatever. And we see that the business units require that, you know, the IT department has to be more agile, they have to be faster, and so on and so on. You probably heard that many times. And if the IT department don't do it, you know, then the business might, you know, buy their IT somewhere else because they are faster. And what we can do with our UI, with our software and the APIs we have is that we have, of course, integration with VMware's VRO. So, and the different with our solution is that everything is controlled per virtual machine. So you can build these policies with our plugin, and everything is focused on the virtual machine individual. And in the next slides, I'm going to show you an example how we can, you know, actually do this with a program called Slack. So if I want to, let's say, you know, I want to launch new virtual machine, you can use our per clone VM. If I want to set the QoS, I can build different kind of QoS policies. I can have one for my test environment, and I can have one for my production environment. And what you then can do is that you can set these policies per virtual machine. And when you do this, of course, if you have thousands of virtual machines, you don't want to, you know, do it per virtual machine because that will take a lot of time to do it. But so you can create policies in our environment as well, based on names of hypervisor folder. And then you can say, well, all VMs that has a name tag with this, or in the folder that is in this folder, they will automatically get this quality of service. So, and then in the quality of service, you could put in minimum, maximum number of I/O, whatever you would like to have for those specific virtual machines. And then we will guarantee it. And if you launch new virtual machines, they will automatically get it, if of course they match with the rule set you have set for these policies. Same thing goes with our snapshots. So if you determine, you know, how often do I want to run snapshots, Again, you can specify policies to be a member of a snapshot policy, and then they will be automatically member when you launch new virtual machines. You don't have to configure it when you have set these policies. Replication. Today we support replication to other Tintri units. In the next month, we are going to launch the option to do synchronous replication also. So today asynchronous, later synchronous replication, and later again we're also going to support that you can replicate to other targets. So another target we meet today, with other targets we will mean that it's going to be Amazon and it's going to be S3 cloud storage. And S3 is a protocol, so it could be on-premise solution as well. Then, of course, if sometimes we do come up with new firmware for our arrays, and you can also automate that in VRO when you're gonna do the upgrades of the arrays. About the upgrade, I will say it's pretty easy to do these upgrades of the units because you log into our support site, you download a single image file, and that image file contains everything. So new software features, let's say it's firmware upgrades of the controllers or net cards or whatever. Everything is built into these image files, and then you upload the image file to the unit, and the unit will upgrade one of the controllers first, and when that is done, it will switch over and it will upgrade the other one afterwards. It is software, so let's say something happens in the upgrade process, and then the box will automatically call home to, it will not take up the phone and call, but it will of course send notifications to our support center that the upgrade has failed, and then our support guys will contact you, do a WebEx, and they will do a rollback to the previous version of the software. You don't need to do it. We will handle it for you. So, and what is, there's a bit of a lag here. So example of a self-service with Slack. So we have a Tintri bot. So I can actually chat with my infrastructure here. It sounds a little bit odd. So I have asked my infrastructure, give me a list of my virtual machines, and it answered back that sorry, you don't have any virtual machines. Okay, let's say I was application owner. Okay, then I fire out a new command and say create me a MySQL VM, and then the chatbot will report back. Well, here's your VM with an IP address, and you can log in to that IP address and start using the virtual machine. So as an application owner, I log in to this virtual machine. I of course do all the jobs I need to do about making the application ready for production and all that stuff. And when I'm done and I'm actually ready to fire out this virtual machine, then before I do some upgrades, maybe I can also schedule a snapshot from the Slack chat program. And of course, with the snapshotting, you can also roll back. So I can do fail recoveries in Slack as well, if I need to do that. So as an application owner, I don't actually need to have access to vSphere to do all that stuff. So as a VM admin, you can actually create these self-service portals. This is with Slack, but it could also be a web service if you want to do that instead there. When I'm ready to fire out the VM, then I can set quality of service for that specific virtual machine. And so here I set it to production, which means that now I want to give it a certain amount of I/O based on that policy production. And then the virtual machine is ready to start handling a lot of I/O. And so this can actually be scripted. And the way we do this is actually with, this is from our test lab in San Francisco. And the way we do it is that we have a VMware environment. And on the VMware environment, we're also using VRO. And then there was a very clever customer in Japan who actually wrote the Tintri bot for us. So now we have taken that in. And the bot is actually just sending command to either to VRO, or when we do the snapshotting, it sends command directly to Tintri, because we can do the snapshotting and the recovery per VM. So this is just an example, what is actually possible with Tintri. And again, there's no reason to manage LUNs and RAID groups and all that stuff. We're done with that. So back to my start, As I said in the beginning, this is what you need to monitor. That's it. The rest of the storage layer, we're gonna automate that completely for you, and then you can focus on your applications and what are you delivering to the business. So let's see if I can. Before I jump into the demo lab, we have in the stand we have a draw of a Paradrone. So if you take the app for today, then you can put in this code into the app, or you can also get the code outside. And then you later today we're gonna do a draw of a Paradrone and see who's gonna be the lucky winner. If you find the Tintri interesting and you want to see, what can it do for my environment, we are borrowing out this unit for free. And when we say for free, it is for free. It is with full support that we install the units. I do the installation myself. And then we can test, all the VM awareness stuff we have in your environment and see if that's something that will fit your environment. And if let's say you don't like it, it's white. Let's say I want it black. Sorry, but we cannot give you that. Then you can freely return the unit, and there's no cost to it at all. And you can borrow these systems for 1 month, 2 months, whatever it needs. We of course need to qualify it. That what is your project? What is it that you want to test? And then we ship your units, and then you can start testing it. So in 2 weeks time frame or something like that, we can have units in your data center. So let's see if I can jump into the demo lab here. So now this is our lab we have in San Francisco, and here I have a virtual machine. And so if I drill down a little bit, what you then can see, I can see for this specific virtual machine, where's the latency coming from? So is it the host layer, network layer, or storage layer that is actually causing some issues here? So I have a good idea where do I need to start to look. You can also, of course, see how many IOs have I delivered over time to that specific virtual machine. And you can also see the throughput and the latency. So where are the latency coming from? This specific virtual machine has a little bit of latency in the host layer, peaking up sometimes. So, maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to see what about CPU, what about memory, or what about readiness? Too many virtual machines on the same EXX host. Is that a problem? So is it waiting for resources in the hypervisor layer? This is a plugin for vSphere that will give you this information. So you don't need to log into the Tintri UI to see it. Of course, you have the option to it's a it's not the best way of controlling. Of course, you can log in here to our UI and see where is the latency coming from. And let's say I want to sort all my virtual machine on latency, and then of course you can go in. If I can, it's not the best. So here you can see where the latency is coming from, and of course I can double click on that virtual machine, and then I can see the I/O we are delivering in real time for that single virtual machine. And let's say I want to compare that. So I want to compare my I/O with latency. And you can go up to seven days back in this UI. So here I see this virtual machine has definitely some host latency, the green one. So this virtual machine will not run any faster because of the host latency. That is the biggest bottleneck I have. So I need to fix that. And what you then can do is that I can actually also show you why do we have host latency. So if I click here on more and dig into CPU and memory, we can actually see what is the reason for it. And for this specific VM, it's the swap weight that is peaking up. So that's the issue why we have latency issues for this specific VM. It could also be in CPU, or it could have been readiness. So too many virtual machines on the same host. So this works, as I said in the beginning, out of the box. Install a Tintri unit, you move your virtual machine to it, and you get these tools. The other options we have is that if I right-click on a virtual machine, I can, of course, determine how often do I run on snapshots. Normally, you will set it up with our policy-based and don't want to control it per virtual machine. But it's the same UI you basically get. So here I determine, how often do I run on a snapshot for this virtual machine, how far, do I want to keep the snapshots, what kind of snapshot, VM consistent, hardware, crash consistent snapshotting. Depends on your in your environment. VM consistent is a VMware snapshot and then a Tintri snapshot. Crash consistent is a Tintri snapshot only of the virtual machine. And of course, I can do replication to other sites if I want to do that as well. And if I want to do restores, then of course I right-click on the VM, go into Restore VMs, and then I select, is it the entire VM I want to restore, or is it guest files? And then I select my snapshot, and I click Restore. I power down the virtual machine, move some pointers in the file system, power it up again. And then you're back in time. If it's the guest file, well, same thing, you select the snapshot. We, as I said before, we mount the snapshot into the VM, and then you can drag and drop your files out of it. And after 48 hours, we detach and remove the clone of the snapshot. So it's pretty easy. And this can be, of course, again, if we go over to vSphere. Let's see if it works here. And if I can control the mouse correctly, we have a Tintri all actions here. So I can, of course, do the snapshotting, cloning, set policy-based things, restore my virtual machine and all that stuff, set QoS. I can control everything in vSphere. So I don't need to log into the Tintri UI to do it. You can do it directly here. And then the storage layer will, more or less be, out of your daily thinking. It will just be there, like power. You don't need to worry about it. And now, and we have our VM scale-out software. The VM scale-out software will automatically do load balancing across all your Tintri units per virtual machine. So you don't need to look at that at all. And if we look at the, how effective is it? Well, as I said, we can build data stores up to 300 terabyte. I don't know, how big in your environments is, but my guess is if you have 300 terabyte data today, you probably have many LUNs and many data stores, because that is the way we used to do it. We take a big storage system, we split it up to multiple LUNs and multiple data stores, because else we cannot control what's going on. But with Tintri, you get one single data store with 300 terabytes. That's it. Of course, you can scale it bigger, and then our VM scale-out software will automatically move the VMs around between the different data stores. So when you launch a new virtual machine, you don't need to, worry about which data source should the virtual machines be in. You just add it in, and the software will do the rest. Sounds a little bit too good to be true, we know, but it works, and that's actually why we borrow out these systems, because you have to see it in your own data center to truly believe it. The other stuff we have is that we have the way we can do analytics of your virtual machine. And it's a cloud platform from Tintri. And what I can do is that for my lab here, I can see how is my lab trending. So let's go back in 3 years time frame. So I can see, the trend. The purple one is the performance I need. And I can see it's pretty flat. The same thing with capacity. So if my boss was looking at this, he thinks I'm not doing anything at my job, daily job. I probably need to work faster. So, but for your environments, you will probably see some trend upwards, of course, on capacity and on performance. This is based on all my virtual machines. Again, you can create different groups if you want to see for different things here. And then we do the trending, and of course, if some of these ones are hitting the maximum soon, you need to do some investment, or else you probably will have issues. So it's pretty easy for you to go in, take this UI, show it to the man with the money, and say, well, see, in 6 months time frame, we're gonna run out of capacity, or we're gonna run out of performance. So please, I need to do something. Right now, these are storage metrics we are showing you, and what's something that will also come here is memory and CPU as well. So then we basically have most of the critical things you have in your data center. The other thing we can do is that we can do these experiments. So I have nearly 700 virtual machines in my environment here. And let's say I'm gonna, add more virtual machines. And now I don't have my keyboard here, so I need to do it more slowly way. So I'm just gonna add about 100 virtual machines, and I can see, what is the impact on capacity and on performance as well. And since none of these are near 100%, I'm good. So yes, I can just add more virtual machine. Of course, it's not easy for me now to change those, but of course you can go in here and you can change capacity, performance numbers as well. And so let's say you change it to a lot. Well, I'm not going to stand here and scroll that up. It's going to take a while. But if you go over 100% here, it will give you, of course, a warning and say, hey, please don't, you're overcommitted on I/O on capacity. So that will it will be an issue if you do that. It could be, at your company, they're gonna buy another company. So can you check in that other company's data into your environment? Well, if that company's VMs is the average of your VMs, you have a way of guessing it, at least. So I would just want to go in here. The last thing I want to show you is the quality of service. So you just go in here with our quality of service, and of course you don't need to set it for every single virtual machine. The dynamic quality of service actually do a pretty good job. But what you can do is that if this was a critical virtual machine for me, I can put in a high minimum, that number of I/O I want to promise that virtual machine. And then it will automatically get it out of our pool. So that was it. If you have any questions or want to hear more or see a deeper dive demo or anything, just go out to our booth and we are there to help you. Okay? Thank you for listening.